Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Leaders Podcast. Today, I'm honoured to be joined by Chelsea Binns, who's an associate professor from the world famous John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. Prior to John Jay, Chelsea conducted investigations for the city and state of New York in the financial industry, and she's also past president of the New York chapter of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Welcome, Chelsea. Thank you for taking the time to come on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I'm so excited about this.
Okay, so Leaders Podcast, it's speaking to leaders in the industry, sharing their insights, knowledge in the world of intelligence and investigation. Chelsea, just give us a little bit of an introduction and talk a bit about yourself, please.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So I am a professor. I started out as an investigator. So I have a very rich and interesting background that way, being both a PhD and having a very deep understanding of investigations and having sat for the licensing exam for the CFE. So I'm also a certified fraud examiner and then also a licensed private investigator. So that's really, again, very unique for a professor to hold, but it's really informed a lot of the research that I've done and also informed the involvements that I've had in various professional organizations over the years and the opportunities that I've been able to provide to my students because of those professional associations has really been incredible. So that's one of the big reasons why I'm excited to talk to you about all of this.
Yeah, fantastic. So professor, and then moving into the private sector investigation world. Talk about the thought process that you came from, to, teaching it and then trying to sit the exam with the New York State and develop your journey that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been an investigator. It's just always been inside of me. I've always been that very curious person ever since I was little. And as I grew up, I was always interested also in law enforcement related work. I used to sit with my grandmother and watch what she called at the time police shows. And I sat there with, great eagerness and very interested in what was happening. And my grandmother did too, by the way, but she never had the opportunity to work in the industry. But it was something that I was always curious about. And then when I found that it was actually a discipline that I could study in college, I was just floored. I was blown away. And I said, this is what I'm doing. So I literally opened a college brochure. Great. And I said, oh my gosh, I can go to college for this? Like, this is exactly what I'm doing. And so I always had that academic interest and it just exploded. So I went from associate's degree, bachelor's degree, to master's degree, my PhD. I just kept going because I just loved learning about what I was doing. And I was always very just personally interested in it. And I think that really motivated me to want to know as much as I could about it and be an expert in it. And so that's what drew me to education as a field of endeavor as well, because I found that I now, on the flip side, I'm really good at sharing what I know and teaching others. And because I also had all that great professional experience along the way, I have so much to share with students, so much practical experience also.
Tell me, that was, so with your journey through academia and qualifying and becoming a professor, those skill sets and that path, how was that different, or is it different in terms of taking those knowledges and skill sets into, let's say, the private sector, where taking your New York investigator exam and going through and becoming an ACFE? Is it the same? Are there differences in terms of what you learn in a university, a college, a educational environment compared to the test? Does it give you the skill sets that you need, for example, and answer the questions that you take on these tests and the work that, say, a private sector investigator does?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I think a lot of what you tend to do in academic programs, especially as you get on in your studies, is you're doing a lot of research and a lot of theory. But what's great about that is it really applies to your work on a practical level, because even though you didn't realize it when you were working in the field, perhaps, that the theories and research were informing the practices that you were doing all along. And so it's really amazing to have had what I have. And that's insight into all of it now, because now I say, oh, that's why we set things up this way. Or, that's why we take this approach with these offenders, or that's why it made so much sense once I was so well-rounded in my education. And I'm so fortunate that I have all of that, because I really think that the most well-rounded investigator would arguably be someone like me that really is so well informed on both of those levels, because it is so unique. And also because of all the experiences that I've had, I'm aware of certain gaps. I'm aware of certain challenges that research can come in and fill those. And that's, of course, an evolving process too. So I've been able to identify that and bring that to bear to the research community to make positive changes going forward. And so I can give an example of that. So one example is with, for instance, fraud hotlines. Fraud hotlines are anonymous reporting mechanisms in companies and other entities. They're very popular in the government too, for reporting fraud and waste and abuse, et cetera. And so I became aware of them as an investigator. And then when I started working in other sectors, they were also very important, but I saw that they were perhaps underutilized. And I thought that was really interesting. And then I went to research that as an academic, and I saw there really wasn't anything out there to research about this in terms of peer-reviewed academic literature or books for that matter. And so from this experience, I saw that there was a void and a way that I could contribute to that. And that's what led to my dissertation on the subject of fraud hotlines, which I eventually made into a book.
That's the gap. That's knowledge gap in terms of information that's out there. What about in the field, Chelsea, in terms of going out there and doing the inquiries in the field? How has your experience through academia assisted in becoming a well-rounded field investigator?
That's a great question. I think that it's given me an exposure to a lot of different kinds of people and the ability to really talk to anyone about a very wide range of topics. And I think that's really important. Also, it's enabled me to be a better researcher in terms of knowing everything there is to know about that person before we have that encounter, right? So in terms of doing background investigation, that when you're a researcher, your skills in that regard are elevated. You are so used to doing, once you've written, several, I don't even want to say how many pages, a lot of pages of a dissertation and book, you and all the research that goes along with that, nothing intimidates you. You're not intimidated by large reports. You're not intimidated by something that's difficult to find and you have to go get it, right? Talk about, let's say, that piece of research you need from an interlibrary loan. You're going to keep digging. And the same thing applied to your subjects. You're going to keep going until you find it. And if you find that document and it's 1,000 pages, you don't care. You're going to get through that. If you have to, just take chances, you're going to do that too, because that's something you do a lot in a PhD program. You take a lot of chances and you try to find that area, that unique area that no one's thought of, that you can develop for your research. And being able to think like that and think outside the box translates so well into investigations, as you know.
So you took the step to go into the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and then you gave back to the association by becoming president, right,
Mm-hmm.
of the New York chapter. Why did you do that? Tell us a little bit about that journey in the association and giving your time, because they're non-paid positions and you're devoting your time, effort, and energy to the association. Explain a little bit about what went on there.
Sure. Well, what's so interesting is I didn't intend originally to become president or anything else of the association. I literally, this was back in, maybe 2012 or 2011. I just went to a regular meeting. I had just become a CFE. I was in the PhD program and it was over the summer and I studied for and passed the exam. And I just said, I'm going to a meeting. And I walked in, I didn't know anyone there. And I just was not afraid to walk up to people, introduce myself and say, hey, what can I do to get involved here? And like, Mike, and now I know, as being on the flip side of it, that's gold. When someone comes up to you and says, what can I do to help you? And you are a nonprofit volunteer association that depends on people like that, you're thrilled. And so now I know this is why they jumped at the chance to, at my offer. And so initially I was, they brought me in, I think I was on the conference team for their next conference. And then the next thing you know, I was training director of the organization. I was an at-large board member. Then I was second vice president, first vice president, and just made it up the chain. And I think it's because, I had great ideas for the association. I knew how to do the hard work and wanted to do the hard work to execute them. And I was able to get it done and inspire others along the way. And I brought a lot to the association also through my connections with academia, my connections to students, our ability to partner with them, which I know you like to think about too, partnerships. My ability to partner with them and bring that to our professional community was such an asset to that community and to my students. So it was really so mutually beneficial.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, they're non-paid positions and you're committed and you push the association on its journey. You try and improve it in whichever way you can to take it to that next step. But as the normal, let's say, not normal, but the individual private sector investigator from whichever skill sets you have, what would be the benefits of joining, say, ACFE or any other association out there? What sort of benefits do they provide?
I would say they're just unmatched, the benefits that they provide. I was, on a personal level, it really elevated my career, my professional career, that association and the others, such as WAD, other associations that I've been involved with, have just elevated my career exponentially. Think about the ACFE alone, all of the board positions I held, all those opportunities to develop my leadership skills and to give back to the community and to others. I wouldn't have otherwise had that. And I should mention that of that organization, the New York chapter of the ACFE, I was the first female president. That organization was founded in 1990. And in 2018, I was the first female president. And so to have that opportunity is really incredible. And the platform to be able to have achieved that and paved that way for others, because now there's been another that I'm aware of, woman president since then. And it paved that way. And I'm really incredibly proud of that achievement. And so that's just one example. And then another is through, for instance, WAD, I've really elevated my investigative career and my ability to reach such a wide range of professionals that have been vetted and that are also, let's just say, amazing people, which is so nice to be able to work with and have such a nice group of contemporaries that have such incredible camaraderie where it's almost family-like, and have that to draw upon gives you that confidence that you can have your own career and that you can have your own investigative agency, because no matter what comes to you, you're going to be able to find that professional that's going to be able to help you out, whether it's a technique you've never used or a region or country that you've never worked in. You're going to have someone there that's going to help you. And I do have an example of that too. So as you know, right now I'm in Tokyo, Japan. And when I came here, so I was already a WD member, and I was lucky enough to see in my inbox an email that was from a Japan member that happened to be right down the street from me. And I said, well, what are the chances of that? And I had just come to this country and was thinking, how can I get involved here in the investigative community? And then here is my chance. And so I emailed them and explained who I was and said, I met you through WAD. And the next thing you know, I'm liaisoning with them. I'm helping them with English support in their cases and learning about the investigative processes here in another country. And so it's been so mutually beneficial. And the types of cases that I've worked on were so different from my background. Now I've worked on missing persons cases, for instance, Americans looking for long lost people here in Japan, and being able to help them and facilitate these answers to them it's been an incredible experience that I honestly wouldn't have if it wasn't for WAD. Prior to this, when I knew I was coming here, I was literally cold, because I already told you how I'll go up to strangers. I don't care. I was cold emailing people that I didn't know, just random investigators in Japan, saying, hey, here I am. Will you meet with me? And, I wasn't doing very well with that. Let's just say, partially because it wasn't their language, I'm sure. And another reason because, investigators are, we're savvy people. We're a little skeptical, sometimes maybe. And, I can understand why they wouldn't respond to someone they don't know. But here, because it was the same professional association, you had that more, you were comfortable. They were comfortable in contacting me. So yeah, just a few examples of the success that I've had.
Yeah, fantastic. If you don't know, the WAD, World Association of Detectives, is almost 1,000 members, experts around the globe in more than 85 countries. It's the oldest and largest association of its kind. It will be celebrating 100 years in September in Chicago, the first week of September in Chicago at the Drake Hotel, where the WAD originally started. So that's a huge achievement. No, you're right. You're right, Chelsea. I like the little thing about reaching out to other investigators, cold emailing. That that will put any investigator in alert mode. I mean, there's another investigator from a different country reaching out to me for a hey, hi, let's have a chat. Yeah, I get it. I can understand the challenges there. So,
absolutely.
with the this is another sort of question I think people would be interested in. With the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, how have you found public and private synergy? Because it's fraud, right? You're investigating fraud, white collar fraud, private sector fraud, whichever type of fraud that's out there. Have you found, by being part of that association, the private and public, say with law enforcement, synergy? Is there a synergy that takes place there? Is there an opportunity and advantage for being a member of the ACFE that will help you open doors for uncovering or investigating a fraud matter?
Well, there is. And what's so interesting about fraud, right, as bad as it is a topic that tends to unite people because we're all experiencing it in every sector. And that's always been the case, right? But I think nowadays we are getting a bit better about collaborating than in the past. But there's been a long history, at least with the New York chapter, of doing such collaborations. So for instance, years ago, and it was before my term with the organization, that they were having meetings at city agencies, specifically the New York City Department of Investigation. The NYCFE would occasionally hold joint meetings there, and which was, a very beneficial idea to really bring more awareness of the organization into the public sector and pave the way for collaboration. And of course, through me with the NYCFE, we had our collaborations with John Jay College, which is a public university. And we held many, many conferences there, 8 to 10 conferences and meetings and all kinds of events, networking events there. And that was incredible because it would draw people like students, like professors that wouldn't maybe otherwise have attended, but since it was in the building and I told them about it, they were going to be there. And so that's why doing things like that, and the organization has since done more of that with the private sector as well. We had meetings with private sector collaborators too. And that was really beneficial for that reason. You'd get this whole new set of people. You'd get the workers from that organization, other people in that building, it really just broadens your reach to a different audience. And that's such a nice thing, and it
Yeah.
brings more members, more people joining you from different sectors.
Yeah. No, I get it. And if you are certified with the certified fraud examiners, I suppose when you're giving evidence, or if you're attending, maybe reporting cases to law enforcement because you need law enforcement involvement, it gives you a little bit more, let's say, credibility in terms of preparing your statements and your reports, right? I'm sure there's that feedback too.
Oh, sure. And now there were plenty of instances I'm aware of where someone needed a
Hmm.
contact within a various organization, whether it was Verizon, or a telecommunications company, or in a law firm, or one of the large law firms in New York, or just an organization that they needed to know where to serve process,
Hmm.
or perhaps a contact that could help them get some kind of answer that is not
Yeah.
traditional. And something that an investigator would need to know, or an anti-fraud personnel would need to know. And that's usually a very unique contact within the organization that you just can't Google and
Yeah.
find, right? It's often not going to be out there. And so having someone on the
Yep.
inside, even if that worker is not that person, they will know who you can
What a
contact.
great point. You can't Google and find, because you're right. You need someone in a certain department that needs to get something done for you. You could spend hours rabbit holing in Google and not get anywhere,
That's
and
right.
sending hundreds of emails. You're right. That is gold in itself. Just what you said there. Industry, yeah. Industry and insights. The industry, right? This industry is probably one of, if not the most ever evolving industry that there is out there. How do you see the work that we do? I'm into my 30th year in this, and you're learning something new every day. How do you see the sort of trends where we're going as an industry, and what are the issues or the challenges you see investigators that will face?
Well, definitely technology is ever evolving. And I think that has befallen many investigators that haven't kept up with it. And I've heard from a lot of them
Mhm.
that have written chapters for my Art of Investigation series, and they've given their personal anecdotes. And some of them have said that they were not able to pivot well, and what they learned from that, and how they learned by that they needed to do that, and ended up learning the latest tools and tricks
Mm.
of the trade, and getting up to speed on the technology that investigators are using, or finding the right partners that do, and being able to talk the talk, though, and knowing what to ask of them. That has been instrumental in their careers, and some have built
Yeah.
entire careers. I know investigators that are technology experts and have built entire careers around that alone, and others that were not, and are still using small notebooks
Mm.
and little pens in their pocket, and maybe don't even maintain anything in a personal computer, and let alone do any kind of data analysis or anything with AI or anything else. And so while that's endearing in many
Yeah.
ways, and there's a place for that, don't get me wrong, there's a place for that, and I'd like to see everyone hold on to that too. But we also need to be really mindful of where everything's going nowadays, because we have to follow it. We have to follow it, and be on top of it, so that we can provide the best services to our community,
Yeah,
to our
completely.
clients, to our customers, to our community, and be able to teach, like I do, students what is happening in the field. You need to stay on top of it. It moves very quickly.
What makes a good investigator, Chelsea?
My book series, I talk about the qualities of a great investigator, and there's 15 of them, right? So I'd be cheating if I just started listing all of them, right? I'm going to, though, cheat and say I'll cheat and use one of them, right? I think, and it's going to be a offshoot of energy, which is what I write about, right? I think
Okay.
that if you have that, energy drives so much else, right? Because if you think of other qualities of a great investigator, like thinking of someone that's technology oriented, right? That could be a quality of a great investigator. That takes a lot of energy. Going until no stone is unturned, right? That passion, all of that
It
takes
does. Yeah.
energy, right? So I would argue almost every quality of a great investigator has some kind of connection. It's almost like degrees of separation, has some connection to energy, and finding that energy in yourself and harnessing that, I think, is critical for someone to be not only a great investigator, but a great business leader in investigations. Take someone like yourself, right? You need a lot of energy to do what you're doing, and you are a leader in the field, right? Well, that's just one example, right? Think of someone like Matt Spayer. I've never seen someone with this level of energy, maybe except yourself and a few others, right? But he also has built a very successful investigation business. The man does not sit still. He does not, right? Now, maybe the two of you are extreme examples, and not everyone has to be that way. You can sit down occasionally.
Yeah.
But I do think that is a really critical skill and quality in an investigator, to have the energy to persevere, to pivot your business, to, when performing your work, to keep looking, keep digging until you find that key thing. I can't tell you how many times it's happened for me when I thought, oh, I think I've looked everywhere. I can't do this anymore. Like, wait a minute, that one database, let me just, you know what? I'm almost annoyed with myself, but let me just do that one last thing, right? And you could probably think of that yourself. How many times did you do that one last thing, and that was so critical in your case? It takes energy.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. And you're right, actually, because you need that consistent drive to keep going and keep going and keep going, where maybe others will just give up. But if you were to say, name 3 qualities, I know energy is covered, and that's a really great answer, Chelsea, because you can use energy as like you said earlier, a degree of separation to cover so many qualities. But if you were to name 3 specifics that makes a well-rounded investigator in today's market.
How is this person in the interview? Are they enthusiastic? Do they seem really interested? Again, that comes through. Do they seem really interested in your organization, really interested in the work that they do? Do they seem fired up? Right? To me, that shows how they will be when performing the work. And that's very critical for me. I think another thing is, another quality of a great investigator is that skepticism. And that's really unmatched also, right? Because think about how many horrible things that are happening to people nowadays in terms of the frauds, the romance frauds, all these horrible things, all the cyber crimes. And a lot of it will tie back to the same place where, if the person had been more skeptical, right, would this have happened? Right? Had the person thought, I don't think I should click on that link. Should I, just because the link is, I know I'm used to clicking in links and emails, but maybe I shouldn't do this, and really giving it a lot of thought. And so this is speaking from the perspective of a victim, but also from the perspective of an investigator, right? So thinking really critically, is this person, I know this person's in front of me and they're talking to me. Are they really who they say they are? And that also ties into, skepticism is a way of thinking outside of the box, right? Are there alternate explanations for this? Because chances are those are being used. And so if you're able to think that way, you're able to draw that out more easily. I think that by nature, you're going to be a strong investigator because you have that critical mindset. And I would say another one that I would look for is professionalism. I can't tell you how many anecdotes I've read from the authors from my book that have said that people, including investigators, have unfortunately maybe ruin their own cases by not being professional, whether it was because they talked about the case in the elevator and the wrong person was in there and overheard it, and
Mhm.
that was career ending for someone in one case. Or it could be something more like
Mhm.
their communications with their counterparties were so unprofessional that they were not able to get that support that they needed in their casework, and that hurt them, that they didn't have the right partnerships. It also means that the subjects that you're speaking with may not tell you everything that they otherwise would have, because that person was acting in an unprofessional manner when they were conducting their inquiry.
Completely. 3 points there: energy, skepticism, and professionalism. Just before we sign off, Chelsea, tell us about you're an author, you've written some books. Tell us about your journey there. And then if anyone needs Chelsea's Bins details, they'll be coming up on the screen at the end of the show. So tell us a little bit about your author career and journey there as well.
Well, I've done a lot as a professor. That's something that we like to do. So I've authored so many book chapters, peer-reviewed articles in security-related journals. And one thing that I'm working on currently that I'm very excited about, because it relates to our field also, is the Art of Investigation series. So I actually have 4 or 5, I'm losing count, books now. One was on fraud hotlines, my first one. And the second was on hotel security and safety in hotels and home sharing. And my next 2 were the Art of Investigation series. The Art of Investigation and the Art of Investigation Revisited. And in the first 2 volumes, I invited investigative professionals, people like yourself, who I'm lucky enough is writing and wrote a chapter in my next volume, in the 3rd volume. But the first 2 volumes, I specifically asked investigators to select one of those qualities of a great investigator. And those 3 that I mentioned are among them. And I said, choose one of these and tell me about the work that you do and have done, and how that quality has strengthened your work and your ability to be an investigator. Or perhaps times when you didn't demonstrate that quality and what's happened. And that's when I got the elevator story. But so incredible things have come out of that. And now for this next volume that I'm working on, The Art of Investigation 3, Industry Confidential, and this will be published with CRC Press, as were the first 2, very highly reputable academic publisher and one of the leaders in the field. And we are now preparing for them this book where we're asking investigators like yourself, experts specifically, about the industries that they serve. Because I noticed how we as investigators, and all of this is about professionalizing the career of investigations, and that I noticed a gap in the literature, that there isn't much out there where investigators are talking about their craft and the art of it, and how important that it is, and all the great work that we have done because of it, and sharing these stories and how they're going to help others. So I started to think about that from an industry perspective, and how that could also help the next generation, because we're all very specific in our focus as investigators in many cases. And because of that, we have this rich history and this rich experience, that I thought, let's get as many people as we can that have expertise in various industries. And now I have over 40, I think I'm up to 45 now, investigators, in various industries. And I said, tell me about your industry and what you know, because you investigate it. And what are the critical traits about being an investigator in that industry? And, basically just tell us everything that we need to know. And so what a resource this is going to be for our future investigators, for anyone that's even just getting into a new field. Let's say you're going to be an investigator in the oil and gas industry. You've never done this before. Well, guess what? We're going to have a chapter on that. And I don't know of anywhere else you could go to get this information.
No, fascinating. Right, really looking forward to that, Chelsea. That's excellent. We've been speaking to Chelsea Binns. It's been an honor, a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for all your content, the contributions, and just a general great discussion. Chelsea's details are coming up on the screen now. You can contact Chelsea here. Chelsea, thank you once again. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for having me.